Yeah, I know she was going to the traffic commission meeting and
I did talk to her. She's gonna leave there and just get here. but
right on.
it's hard to-
Huh?
Another meeting midway
Thought
through.
she was right behind me.
We need to
Speak of her.
figure out the traffic commission.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I talked to her about that today.
Okay,
We brought
yeah.
that up at, like, a 5 o'clock meeting.
yeah. or-
Marlene, how are your bees doing? Are your bees doing good?
No, we're fine so far. We've got a lot of blue.
Wherever you'd like.
New bees, right? Did you get 'em? You got
We could
packets?
have Chris sit there when he gets here.
Two.
One is done.
Still in my yard there.
Oh,
I
or
got some stuff.
could be Ann from Dorn.
Wait,
You guys might come over and see some.
Bumblebee fly by the door today.
Your place?
Yeah, first one I've seen.
Yeah, we've had a couple.
Bumblebees, we had a couple of wasps. We had those weeks ago.
We've had wasp, bumble, the
Actually,
robber bees
no,
or something they're
all of
called.
us
Yeah.
are- I'll just go on with regular meeting. Yep, yeah. All right, I'm good with that.
I really don't care if it can identify the server or not. Not interested. Right? Like. There's Chris. Hey, Chris,
Chris can have one.
we'll have you right here. We gotta.
Club soda. I should know better. I've done that before.
Oh, we're gonna share. I'll yell at you. then, like-
Take you
Right
nowhere.
by you.
Yeah.
Then I'll just make sure to sit next to Mike like this.
Get you a walking bib.
You go up 44th, take a right, there's a teeny little blue house. Coming on the market for $2.99. Teeny little house. Teeny.
I just wanted to clean my.
Yes. You'll likely be.
Man, I sprayed, didn't I?
Oh, it's like a,
Oh, okay, cool.
I thought the bubbles were all-
Don't be afraid.
oh, no, I just didn't know what it was.
Drink it all day long.
This is the most technology that we have.
This is pretty cool.
Yeah. They set this up for.
All right,
emergency emergency. Oh.
like to call the regular meeting of the Economic Development Authority to order. Could I have the roll call, please?
Novitsky,
Here.
Biskins,
Here.
Merjen,
Here,
Jacobs,
Here.
Marquez Simula.
Here.
Sarek,
Here.
and then Herringer.
here.
Ben, we're recording, right? Okay, thank you. Confirm.
Okay, good. All right,
I'm looking for it too.
there is no flag at the public safety.
That seems odd. Yeah. I thought we used to have one in here.
There used to be one.
Well, then we have to
I heard
start
it was
that.
moved.
Okay, the consent agenda consists of approval of the regular minutes from February 1st, approval of the financial report and payment of the bills. Are there any questions on the minutes or on the financial report? Jerry?
It's right next to you.
Usually does. Did you see in here that there was a page that kind of explains some of the?
Yeah, I was gonna say, oh, are you talking to me?
I am talking to
Oh,
you.
okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
No, the format with the bills and then on the next page,
Yes,
what they are, that'll eliminate all my questions, so I'll go home now.
Okay. Works for me.
no. Right then there is no question, so I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda as it is presented.
So moved.
Second,
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Move on to the business items, which is to approve the hazardous material abatement contract for 960 40th Avenue. I do not talk well with the thing on my mouth. Okay. You're on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So 960 40th was a scattered site acquisition recently made by the EDA directly adjacent to the redevelopment site at 40th and Central on 40th Avenue there. We're moving through the process to demolish the home, and the first stop in doing so would be the abatement of any hazardous materials, and in this case, clearing of a large quantity of household items that were left behind by the previous owner. So the city, or it's rather the EDA received 3 bids for this work, which includes asbestos abatement, removal of all the appliances and anything considered hazardous, and then clearing the house of the household debris that's in there. Staff do recommend in this case to award this contract to Burgo Environmental Inc., who was the low bid. You can see the breakdown in your packet, quite a spectrum of bids that we received for this project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Do these companies that come in here, besides dealing with the hazardous materials, do they have a thing where they sort through and they don't just throw all this into the landfills? Do they send it like we do with our waste, try to get it to many different places where it keeps it from the landfill?
So hazardous materials are regulated individually
Right.
depending on what it
So
is.
all this would be considered hazardous because it's been exposed to?
No, the household goods are gonna end up in just a traditional landfill.
Are they? So they don't sort, they don't go through and make sure some things get to other places for recycling?
Yeah, in this case, I think that would be a significant cost add-on
That's too bad.
to the EDA to filter through it.
I just noticed the suit there is probably from the 1920s or 40s, and so there's some real relics in that house. There, you know, which is unfortunate. Somebody had to live like this, but it's, you know, original woodwork is just amazing. Looking at these pictures, can't imagine. The person didn't cook and didn't do laundry because everything was piled on the washing machine and on the stove.
The bathroom tile.
The bathroom tile, I missed that one.
What? How could you miss it?
Oh, that one, yeah.
I
It's
love
just
it.
sad.
Yeah, so the pictures were included in the bid package for the environmental contractors.
It wasn't for us to
No,
go,
that's-
oh my lord.
That's how it wound up in your packet,
Oh.
but it was to give them a sense certainly of what they were going into. And then when they could go back home and have a good record for their bidding purposes. But
So now
yeah,
they're gonna remove all of this paraphernalia that's in the building?
that's correct.
Okay, my only concern was that Virgo was so much lower than the other ones. Are they able to do it for that, or are they gonna say halfway through? Of course, they saw these pictures.
Right. We know, and they toured the home. Each one of these contractors, we can confirm, did, do an on-site inspection.
Yeah,
And we do circle back with them. And I know Mitch did in this case say, okay, just confirm. the
you
scope
know
of
about
work.
them? You've not worked with them?
We have
before?
not worked with them
Okay,
specifically.
okay. Have we used Hummingbird before?
We did use Hummingbird right up the street, actually, at 1002 40th
Mhm,
for the last
mhm.
one we did.
Okay, well,
I think
I hope it goes well because the difference is really staggering.
I agree, and we have a contract
Yeah,
that'll,
yeah.
support this amount and hold them to account.
Mhm.
I don't know if the other contractors are significantly more busy. The hazardous material abatement is not significant in comparison to the house right up the street, the amount of asbestos.
Right.
I think many of the contractors looked at the volume and just potentially submitted a bid where they said, we're not really interested, but we'll do it.
Okay, here it is, and if you take it, then,
Right,
okay, all right.
That's what I think we're dealing with
Okay.
here.
Okay, well then, we're okay. All right, are there any questions from the commissioners on this? Okay, then we'll entertain a motion for this, which is on page 61. It's also
Motion to
page-
accept the low bid by Virgo Environmental Incorporated for the removal of all hazardous materials and household items located at 960 40th Avenue Northeast, and furthermore, to authorize the president and executive director to enter into an agreement for the same.
So, second.
Motion's been made and seconded that we accept the low bid from Virgo. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now, we move on.
Yeah,
Number 4.
number 4.
Number 4.
Madam Chair, it is, I guess, with some pretty significant excitement that staff would like to discuss the redevelopment of the site at 4300 Central Avenue Northeast. A bit of historical housekeeping, probably not for everyone in this room. Everyone's pretty aware with the site, but for those at home and to make it part of the record, 4300 Central was or has long been a priority for redevelopment by the city. It's currently owned by Hy-Vee Inc., and it contains a partially occupied 140,000 square foot multi-tenant retail center that was acquired by Hy-Vee in 2016. Hy-Vee in that same year did receive site plan approvals to rehabilitate a vacant portion of that building and turn it into a 95,000 square foot grocery store. Due to factors unknown by the city, we don't know all the details, but Hy-Vee has decided to move on from the site and not follow through with their plans for that new grocery store. And they do intend to sell the property. In January of 2021, staff was contacted by Lattice LLC to discuss the city's interest in a partnership to redevelop the property. Previous to that engagement with Lattice had been in contact with Hy-Vee on several occasions over the last year to gauge interest and to try to spur and promote some activity on the site. And once it was known that it was going to be for sale, Lattice did push a little bit harder to get a project moving and negotiated a purchase contract for the property. And that's what we discussed at our last meeting. So between our last meeting and now, that contract is in place. Lattice does have the property under contract for purchase. They've got a set of plans. We're just starting to understand the base elements, and we've got Chris Osmondson from Lattice that can shed more details for the commission. But Lattice has swiftly started to understand the site, investigate what they think is going to be programmed on the site. But I do want to caution again, the EDA, that we're talking in broad scope terms, components that we think will go onto this site with a lot of room for refinement over the coming months, and a lot of room to sit down with the residents of the city and understand what their objectives are for this, very significant redevelopment project. So with that said, right now, we're looking at 400 to 600 multifamily units on the east end of the site along Central Avenue, 20 to 40,000 square feet of retail and commercial space that would be beneath that multifamily housing. Lattice is very committed and in conversations with different grocery providers to still bring a grocery store into this space as an important part of what the community is looking for. Underground parking, of course. A lot of sustainable design is being discussed, solar, and then the high efficiency heating and cooling in the multifamily that we saw Lattice put into or is putting into the 40th and Central redevelopment. An opportunity for a substantial public open space and parkland in the center of the project. So moving east from Central to the west, vertical mixed use along Central right up to the street, a park space in the middle, and then the balance of the lot right now. Lattice is working on a variety of single family housing products that they want to vet, but a single family low density residential neighborhood is what would make up the balance of the site to the west, currently where Jackson Pond is located, just for reference. And there was a attachment in your packet that kind of showed that that 3-part development layout. So that's the outline or the thesis at this time, and we're happy that Lattice has the site under contract, and the next step for this body to entertain is the preliminary development agreement. So that's what is before you this evening. And just like the last time that we did this with the Lattice, the important components of the PDA, it designates Alatus as the city's sole partner for redevelopment in the site. It allows us to move through the due diligence process with a formal agreement. The city and EDA are committing to exploring the use of tax increment financing as well as TIF bond financing that we discussed at the previous meeting. So we're still under that same construct. Alatus would buy the property, the city or EDA would not take title, and the city and EDA would fund the project by bonding with TIF bonds here. And we've discussed parameters for those amounts, but we will come to you with more specific amounts in the subsequent meetings. So we're not here to discuss in detail the bonds, just broad schedule, and that this pre-development agreement again links the EDA to Alatus and lets both parties be comfortable moving forward. Spells out the relationship for reimbursement from the EDA's perspective for our consultant costs, planning costs, Ellers fees, things like that, and consistent with generally the same framework that we went through at 40th and Central, the key distinction being the city's not taking title to this property. And you will have several occasions where you get to weigh in on the details of TIF in the coming months and the details around the bond financing as well.
So we own the reservoir, right?
That's correct.
So are you purchasing this from Hy-Vee and the city then?
Yes,
Is that how that's gonna
that-
start? So, but we're doing TIF. How much is that piece worth? What did you know off the top of your head?
we haven't assigned a value to it.
But
Commissioner
it is part
Biskins.
of the purchase for that whole.
We can develop the structure of that transaction in the the redevelopment agreement. So it will include a purchase or sale of that site, but
Yeah,
you
so
don't
it's
own
all,
that
it's
whole
like
lot.
13 acres in total is the.
Because this is just a long shot. But one of the things I was thinking is the city owned the part where the houses are going on. Would it be possible, this is a long shot, to turn it into a land trust?
we have not explored that option.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I know it goes partially into the building, but a land trust, like, where the city would continue to own the building, but then
Right.
for the land, and then the people that own the houses, it might be more complicated, and like I said, it's a long shot, but it's a possibility,
Yeah,
where people would just, that way it keeps the property value quote affordable with the housing values skyrocketing in the city.
Yep.
It's just, something I wanted to throw out there as a
Yeah.
possibility.
And I think we can talk through all of that. I think within the document in here, it's literally just some rectangles that we
Right.
drew. I think the other important piece in that is we'd want to reestablish the grid through there, whether they're dedicated publicly back or private drive aisles. And then there's a lot of room for interpretation with what we want to do. I mean, a land trust would be a really good opportunity for ownership. We've also had well, I haven't directly, but I know Barrett's had discussions with Aaron about utilizing a 4D tax treatment for some affordability in the apartments. So there's kind of a multitude of different spectrums depending on kind of the economic levers we want to
Right.
pull eventually.
Yeah, because I just found out there's a house up in the corner on Reservoir, teeny weeny little blue house that's gonna be coming up for sale for $299,900.
Okay, sure.
So, if there's any way we can
Yeah,
kind of work that in, and since we own it, part of it that maybe, I don't know. I don't want to throw a wrench into the project at all. I'm just throwing the idea out as a possibility.
oh, yeah, no, I think the biggest investigative piece there is going to be, reconstituting that soil and figuring out how we can build back there and reposition the stormwater and retention facilities, but
Lots of stuff going on.
yeah, this certainly won't be the first time I'll be here, so.
Cool. Thank you.
Probably it's fair to say that the biggest unknowns are surrounding that lower
Right.
density housing component
Yeah,
until we get deeper into the
Okay.
process, but.
And I think the good thing is, sorry if I may, we're probably going to be breaking it into phases. We want to move as fast as we can on most likely the pieces that abut central. And then we'll be working our way back, which if we do look at something like a land trust component, that just will naturally take some more time. And so we can kind of phase the the process as we,
No,
move
I'm
to the
super
west.
excited about the project. I'm super excited we're getting rid of the pit. And just building them up along Central. I can't tell you how many people, I mean, I'll be surprised if we get any pushback, just because that pit has been there forever.
Yeah, that's that 15 feet it seems about 40, so.
Yeah, yeah, it's been our blocky for a long time.
Okay,
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions. Are the single-family units going to be owner occupied or rental?
Well, so
Houses.
so we haven't made that determination yet. We've kind of just chunked the four, I'll call it, they're not quadrants, but we've kind of chunked them into three
Zones.
rectangles, yeah.
And then what's your overall prospected timeline barring any, clearly that's a crystal ball question.
Yeah, so we would like, so I'll call it phase one, which I want to say is going to be let's call it the whole easternmost side of those three components. We'd like to start construction on that in the first quarter of 2022, if we
And you
can.
anticipate hitting stage 3 or that backside in 2 years or 3 years?
I would think that's probably, I would think the furthest backside, so the eastern or the westernmost side, I'm sorry, that's probably within, I would say Q4 2022 is what we would try. And I'm guessing if we do something like a land trust, that
That's
would
gonna
take
take-
like a year to sort of figure out.
And then the commercial space that's spec for 40 to 60,000, does that include the grocery or is that plus grocery?
Yeah, so right now, and we didn't include the floor plan, or I should say the layout, but 40,000 is the approximate square footage of sort of a hybrid grocer. There's probably 4 or 5 different grocers that would potentially fit into that.
Define your sense of hybrid.
I just mean kind of in between of a suburban type of grocer and an urban type of grocer. So for instance, if you go to Hy-Vee in Robbinsdale, that's the 95, actually, I think that's like 110,000 square feet. We're not looking for that footprint, but if you go to downtown Minneapolis, you go into a Whole Foods that's 25,000. So
How
we're kind
does,
of in a,
what you're seeing, and I know there's a lot of change coming.
Yep.
But what you're seeing at this time for a grocery store, how does that compare to the current square footage or the area that Rainbow occupied in that space?
so that was 95,000.
That was 90,
Yep.
so you're looking at half.
So it's
that
about
space.
half of that. Yep.
So we're looking at something that could possibly be closer to an expanded Aldi's rather than a
Yeah,
full-fledged.
Yep. And expanded all these is, and then I think the other piece there is there will not be a sea of parking. So it most likely will be either, right now, what we're looking at is that it might be open air, but the building would be built up so that any grocer or retailer would be right on the same grade as Central, where they currently are. But that's kind of a delicate piece because we don't want to make it so confusing that people can't figure out how to get into the grocer. So we're trying to figure out how we do that, but then still get as much density as we can on the site to essentially also generate tax revenue. So it's a push and pull. So we have about 5 grocers right now that we're looking at. It's all kind of radius-based discussions, and who's coming into the market. There's obviously Amazon is one company that's coming into the grocer stores, into those footprints. So, but so far they've been really good discussions, and we're working them through with
Do
different.
you
brokers.
anticipate that being more of a high-end?
No,
grocery
not
store?
that. No, so Amazon owns Whole Foods. So this is actually more of it's probably more of an Aldi Cub type of competitor.
Okay. And then the bigger question I have is in removing or eliminating that drainage pond that is
Mhm.
there now, what's the ideas moving forward and how to take care of the drainage issues?
Yep.
I know that there was a history of flooding in that area and that's why the pond was developed.
Yep.
How is that going to be carried forward and be respective of the past history?
Yes.
And the things that happened in that area?
Yeah, all really good questions. So I think from an engineering perspective, what we're contemplating right now is probably some form of an underwater cistern, kind of. Ideally, we do like a gray water transfer, so we could actually use some of that water for irrigation. I don't know if we're going to get there. I'd love to, but so that would be entirely an underground basin. And then there's also ways to do open air exposed retention ponds as well, but that don't, there's just a more modern way to do that with native grasses, prairie grass, and go through that infiltration process that makes it look more holistic. But we have not engaged civil engineering yet. So this
Okay.
is
I thought it
my,
might be
this
preliminary.
is my
but I know
development
that's-
speak. I know what we want to do from a sustainability component. And I think in terms of those three chunks, it will sort of align itself with, I think, the public plaza area, but it's going to be really important. I think the good thing is we'll actually probably have less impervious surface than that huge parking area contemplates right now. So at least we'll have the ability to capture rainwater on the tops of these buildings and put water where we want to and redirect it.
I love the prospectus. I love the architectural pieces that are being used in varying the heights. The community park incorporating the retail and the single family homes. But I am absolutely against 400 to 600 more rental units in this community. That is devastating to me.
Why?
Because we're already pushing towards 50% of units of our addresses. And I think that it's an imbalance.
No, I disagree.
I don't know. I did the research this past year and it's a concern.
Yeah, it's not a concern for me. The way the housing market, a lot of people can't even afford to buy a house right now.
Well, and the more we become an income captor and affordable rental community, the more there's other issues that go along with that I'm not prepared to discuss this evening and get into a detailed debate about it. But I'm absolutely against 400 to 600 units is just an astronomical number.
No, I think it bodes for the discussion.
Going back to the
Yeah.
sustainability.
Yeah, I'm
so-
sorry, I missed. What kind of units are we talking about here? It's 400 to 600 units.
Yeah, so I don't like the luxury housing, but I would think it's going to be a spectrum of most likely market rate housing, similar to 40th and Central and how that was comprised.
Getting back to the sustainability part where the reuse of the water.
Mhm.
I did a tour with Mississippi Watershed Management Organization east of.
Oh, yeah.
And so you're familiar with that?
Mhm.
And they got all the plumbing and all
Yeah.
that set up. So that's kind of what you're hoping you could possibly.
Yeah, we need to really get in. I mean, that's engineering. That's way over my
Right,
head. I just
yeah,
know what the
no.
outcome is, but.
That'd be super exciting if you're able to even do half of what they did. It's right by south of Certix, around that area.
Yep.
A really cool setup that they have there.
Yeah, it's really cool.
If I could jump in on some of the utility conversation goalposts and maybe a little bit of the density. So right now, the area suffers from an undersized stormwater pond. Jackson Pond is slightly undersized for ideal capacity. And then we also have a regional sanitary sewer issue that's related to stormwater. Inflow and infiltration is creating backups in sewers in this area of the city. Hy-Vee's project would not have fixed either of those. So this is an opportunity to redevelop the entire site and solve for regional stormwater and sewer. And to get to that level, density is part of the equation because you pick up the economies of scale. So just wanted to shed some light on how those things interrelate. I think the benchmark will be stormwater is engineered obviously to 100% of today's standards to get to that point. And then the ability to fix the downstream sewer issues is a real bonus to the area. And when a comparison for units per acre to the project we just did, I think even at 400 to 600, we're going to be significantly less than the 40th and Central. I could do some quick math.
Yeah, that was 2.4.
Yeah, 116 times 10. Yeah, that density translated to 10 acres would be 1,160 units. So I think this land mass can certainly accommodate the 400 to 600 rental units, especially when we transition across the site into park, lower density, et cetera. But the density is what makes it possible from an economic standpoint. Just would like to add that.
Any other questions? Did you have a question, Jerry?
No, thank you. No.
Okay. Any other issues with anybody? Yes.
There's a question in the Zoom.
Yeah, I can't share that.
Who are the
right now.
grocers?
Yeah, I
Can't
can't
share
share that right now. They're under
We don't know yet.
disclosure
do we?
agreements. Yeah.
On the grocers?
Can't disclose, yeah.
No.
sorry.
But good for the person to know that we're not ignoring the question. though.
No, yeah, yeah.
Just like-
Was that their question?
That was their question, yeah.
Yeah, I can't
No.
see.
Can't read it, yeah. Yeah,
I
he
can't
was
read it,
asking
so,
Who are the grocers, but it's nothing that can be discussed here.
oh, yeah, we're not ready to talk about that yet. Okay, any other questions from any of the other members? So we can move on with this. I think there'll be a lot more questions as time goes by. And this is really quite preliminary, but I think it's important that we move on.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So we will have a lot of time to fully vet the details, the engineering, the land use. However, I do want to let the commission know we will be coming for TIF and bond conversations in May yet, and then throughout May and June. So that part will move rapidly. It still allows for conceptual conversations, both of those. And not pinning down, these very specific deal points. We can work on those over the entire summer, fall, and then work towards what we hope are the land use and entitlement approvals late 2021, early 22. So
Okay,
that's a rough outline.
wonderful. All right, if there are no other questions, we have two motions on the table here, on the floor.
Move to waive the reading of resolution 2021-06. There being ample copies available to the public.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to waive the reading. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now to adopt.
Move to adopt resolution 2021-06, the resolution approving preliminary development agreement between the Columbia Heights Economic Development Authority and Alatus LLC.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adopt the resolution. All those in favor, aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, oh, that's all we have is regular business, right? What, but we do have other,
That's
we
correct.
have other business.
Yes, Madam Chair. Couple.
Okay, all right. The first, number 5 is the fire sprinkler pilot grant program discussion.
Yes, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So since my time with the city, which is just over 2 years now, community development has encountered a reoccurring issue with the revitalization of a lot of our older commercial properties. A lot of these are the smaller properties on 40th Avenue, Central Avenue, and potentially even University Avenue, where we have business ideas that would like to come into the community, but when they go to explore sites and do an analysis of the property and a code analysis from a building code perspective, they find that they have to install fire sprinklers. So the change of use or substantial remodel of any scale for an older building, according to the code that our city has adopted, which is a good code, it keeps the community safe. And I think our fire chief would most definitely agree. I think he was actually the person who led the charge to adopt chapter 1306 sometime in the early 2000s, that it's an important component. It calls for fire suppression in, again, change of use. So you might have a building that's been a dentist for 20 or 30 years, and then somebody comes in with an idea for a gym. We've got that in front of the city most recently. It's a really good example. And because that use category changes in the building code, the occupancy class changes, it triggers the requirement for the fire sprinkler system. So we're butting into that a lot in community development, and a lot of good ideas are dying on the vine very specifically because of this barrier. So staff did some research around it, tried to find out who was doing what. We did come across an example that we'd like to use as an example for a potential pilot program to provide grant money, a match. And that was the city of Blaine, so the flyers in your packet, but essentially, we would propose to provide 50% match for projects up to $15,000 is where staff are comfortable recommending at this time. It'd be a lot of the same parameters as the facade improvement grant program, running in the same geography, up Central, down, 40th from Central to the west. And then along Central, we go from 37th up to 47th. And in this case, we'd like to also add the commercially zoned properties along University, that corridor, because there's a lot of the smaller ones that fit the bill of the age and size that we're talking about. But interior fire suppression systems would be eligible, sprinkler monitoring, and then the water connections to the street. That's probably the most cost prohibitive upgrade is not necessarily the sprinklers that go into the space, but it's the water line needs to be upsized in almost all of these that we've seen. So they have to bring in a larger diameter pipe, and that's the largest cost driver. So again, we think that it makes sense to look at up to 50% of the total project cost with a max of 15,000. 2 or more competitive proposals, just like the facade improvement program, has to be inspected by our building official and get that final CO. Receive the invoices from the contractor and proof of payment. To fund this, we think it makes sense to think of it as a pilot, to do it for a year or maybe more, and see how it goes, see how it's received, how many of these we actually could entertain. I know there's one right now that we could, and that is the gym that recently went into or was approved on 40th Avenue has encountered this very issue and would be an applicant for a program like this. So last year, our facade improvement grant program only had one application that was funded because of COVID and a variety of circumstances, but we only put out one $5,000 grant. So I would propose that we would use the surplus funds from 2020, which is $45,000 for the seed money for this pilot. That comes from Fund 408, which we replenish each year with our HRA tax levy. So if this is something that works and makes sense to the city for previous budget or for future budget cycles, rather, we could look at how we divide that $250,000 differently, potentially. Maybe less of it goes to acquiring scattered site, or less would go to facade. We could use that pool if this is something that is successful. Right now, we're not looking for action. We're looking for direction, for feedback. If the EDA is amenable to this idea, staff would put together a package for formal approval, potentially as early as the next meeting next month, because we've really got the groundwork and contracts that would work for the facade grant that are very similar. We can just take those materials and manipulate them to fit this program. Blaine, you can see in your flyer, very similar structure. They offer up to $25,000, and they expand their eligible uses a little bit further than what we are recommending right now. We really see the greatest need in our experience with our customers is specifically the fire suppression and the water line upgrades. I think from staff's perspective, it provides an opportunity to put these improvements in these buildings. Even if a new tenant is unsuccessful, it is more inviting for the next tenant that will occupy the space, and we can bring some of these smaller entrepreneurial ideas into the city that are striking out. So it's an investment that stays with us, much like the facade, up until the point where the building may be redeveloped, of course. But would be happy to see what you guys are thinking.
Have we lost businesses for certain spaces because they could not afford to sprinkle when they found out that they had to sprinkle their building? It's very expensive.
Yeah, the answer is yes. It's
Okay.
been a lot of potential business owners come in and try to manipulate the code every which way, and architects, present a different thesis, and we interpret it fairly straightforward. It's not a very, there isn't a lot of wiggle room, and it has killed a handful of projects, and it has put, some in jeopardy very recently. So we just think that it is worth trying to see if we can turn the tide on some of these. A lot of the smaller, older buildings are where, young entrepreneurial business people, they don't have a lot of extra money, of course.
No,
And,
they don't.
They're trying to get their start in a smaller space. The threshold for this upgrade is 2,000 square feet. So anything more or less that's over that, that's being significantly remodeled, added on to, or use changing. And use changing is a very low bar. It happens on almost all of these. The technical use per the building code ends up being reclassified.
So you say 2,000 square feet is the maximum?
No, it's the threshold
Minimum.
where, yeah, you might be able to skirt the fire suppression, depending on a variety of other factors in the building code. You might have a chance, but a lot of these buildings that we're talking about are a lot bigger than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be a great idea, because one of the things with bringing density to Central Avenue is you bring more businesses. Is that density attracts businesses, because then they have enough people coming in to do well. And we don't have that density right now in downtown, so that's why it's part of the reason it's difficult. So I think this is a great idea to get ready with these 2 new projects coming up in the next 5 years. We may have people pounding on our doors trying to get in, take advantage of that, so.
Okay,
Where would you put them?
The new businesses,
Yeah,
we got lots of space that can be redeveloped along Central yet. I'm hoping this just starts
I
it.
mean, buying more houses and.
No, yeah, well, along Central, and maybe some other developers will come in and buy up the houses, we won't have to. But no, that's part of the thing, is there will be more businesses wanting to come and take advantage of the life that's coming to Central Avenue with all these new people coming in. I mean, that's a known with redevelopment along in the downtown. When you bring the people in, the businesses follow.
okay.
Aaron, you mentioned the gym on 40th.
Yeah,
Has that moved forward? Because I got information this past week that he did not get his finance and has
I-
walked away.
yeah, I don't have that same information. The last time I spoke with the gentleman, he was in this category in need of some help for this barrier specifically. He was kind of the case that pushed staff over the edge to, okay, we really need to
To
talk about
look at
this.
it, yeah.
But I honestly can't confirm that. The last time I spoke to him, he was still.
Can I ask how long ago that was?
It was probably close to a month.
Okay, yeah, I just got some information from, I got some information this past week that he had not received. He couldn't pull the money together is what I was told.
Where was he planning to put the gym? In what building?
In that little building that's right directly at the end of Monroe on 40th. Where the electric company.
Oh,
Lights Electric
okay,
is,
all
he
right.
owns that building
Okay,
in one or two sections of it.
on the north side,
South side,
south of.
south side of 40th, right at the end, right across from Tabernacle and the end of Monroe.
That's not a very big building.
It's a small boutique gym.
A boutique gym?
With yoga and one-on-one trainings. It's
Okay.
a small setup.
Not like an LA Fitness.
No.
Huh?
Not an LA Fitness, just a small.
Well,
gym.
no, I wasn't expecting a lot of fitness over there. But, yeah, if you're right, then.
Yeah, I was
That's
just
a
curious
shame,
because you had,
because
yeah,
part of the financing would have been to do the sprinkling that needed to be done in the building. And if we had had a program that would help him out,
mhm,
perhaps that could have gone ahead.
yeah.
Oh, well, I'm open to the grant program. I think it's a great idea.
I think
Yeah,
it's a good idea too.
It sounds good. Thanks for the staff for reaching out to figure out how we can get more
Right.
businesses. I was gonna ask, would this be something that would prevent the financing from a bank not having the sprinkler system, and if that can help that then?
That's a great question. So it becomes yes, because if it's part of the broader package,
Show
and
the
it becomes a
partnership with the
barrier,
city
then
more.
it very well could be the thing that has
Mhm.
taken the gym out of contention, as an example, because they can't get that extra construction financing.
Would current businesses still be able to get it even without transfer of uses or anything?
Great question. I think it's open for discussion, how the parameters that we want. So I don't see it as a retroactive grant. So
No,
Like-
nothing
like-
that's happened before,
Right.
but like a business is staying there, not changing, but
Wants
they
to
want to
expand.
upgrade, and make it safer.
yes, or
I would
yeah,
hope that that would be
Expand
included.
in order
I would
to
too.
Qualify for it.
expansion, I think, would be a definite trigger in my mind. So if, and we've had examples of that, restaurants on Central Avenue that wanted two of them that have led to this conversation, that wanted to expand into adjacent tenant space and could not because the cost of sprinklers was
Yeah.
prohibitive. So I think that's a very good example of where this comes into play. If they wanted to make it safer, not change use, not expand, I think we would have to deliberate that. Is
Well,
that a criteria we
Would
wanted
it
to?
also help with their insurance rates if they had it?
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Their insurance rates would be better. if they were
did
sprinkled
need to
buildings.
expand, I mean, I think if anything to promote safety, plus, it's
True.
it's also investing in the building for future use later on if they sell it or somebody else goes in there. and they
I think
need
it's
it.
important that we incorporate a way that even if they're not expanding, that if they have the wherewithal to want to incorporate that piece of safety, I think there needs to be a way that we
I would
can
agree, yeah.
accommodate
I
that.
agree. Yeah. I agree
Especially
with
for
that.
businesses that have stayed here through
They
our
have been here absolutely.
downtime, and if we're going on the uptick now.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's
I
a
think it's a great
generous
idea.
idea.
And it'll keep the community safe, so
Yeah.
if one
Right.
fire does happen, we can hopefully keep it contained.
Yeah, exactly, because we don't, I mean.
Long-term, all of these incremental improvements do chip away at the insurance rating of the city. I think, I think it takes a while. I'm not an insurance expert for that to actually show up in the savings for these business owners, but it is part of the, the equation, and every little bit counts.
Right, I
And
agree
it's
with-
gotta make public safety feel better too, to have.
yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I agree with Nick. I mean, the safety is huge. We don't want anyone getting hurt in a fire because they don't have sprinklers.
Right.
And you have a chance to save buildings in many cases.
Yeah.
If you do have them, and rather than a total loss type
On
situation.
Yeah.
Central too, we have like apartments above some businesses too, so
Mhm.
protecting the businesses and there's people that live above them, so. But I think showing that investment in our structures, really shows that we want businesses to come, we're willing to put our best foot forward as well to welcome them. I think it's I'm glad you're able to, work to get this set up.
Okay.
So I'm hearing that you'd like to see a formal proposal
Yes.
with
Yeah,
a more refined,
exactly.
taking
John
this
hasn't said
feedback
anything,
and.
I think he agrees.
And if they already got the facade improvements, that shouldn't be a barrier to this one. I
No,
Mhm.
just kind of a bonus. I think.
Yeah, really, I mean.
Yeah,
those
the
are
only
the-
other thing I'd like to add later on, if we have some extra money, is landscape grant program, because there's a few businesses that could really need help with the landscaping.
Yeah, I think
That's down the road.
if we wanted to deliberate, that might be an add-on to the facade
Yeah.
system. Probably the easiest way to consider that.
Speaking of facades, I like the new window at, that's American Legion Hall, right, isn't it? It's not a V-
Yeah.
it's VFW. I love that big window. I think that's
Made a
really
big
cool.
difference.
It really dressed up that building.
Yeah.
It's so much nicer sitting
Oh,
inside
yeah.
to have it makes it makes it feel much bigger inside.
Good
And
plan.
Much
connect
more
it to
spacious.
community more, because you can see central, people can see what's going on.
That was our 2020 grant application too.
Just
so
add some,
Good job.
It was a worthy one.
Yeah, I know. I
Don't look
know.
like a
That's really
dungeon in
cool.
there anymore.
It also adds interest for people walking by,
Yep.
because you see inside this
Mhm.
business, the restaurant, so it's,
Very welcoming. I
yeah.
think.
Okay, sorry I interrupted the whole thing, but I wanted to tell John that I like what they did to their building. All right, so we've put this to bed now for a while. Number 6 is electronic packet distribution discussion.
All right, I might have Alicia jump in and back me up. So we do have at our disposal through the CARES Act and the COVID money that came to the city. We purchased tablets for our commissioners, and just wanted to see if you were all ready to make the transition potentially to non-paper and electronic, or are you appreciating the paper packets? Where are you at on that? Because we can offer fully electronic. In the case of the EDA, the council, they all have received tablets. The commissioners Herringer and Zurich, we would have to ask you to come pick them up before the meeting, so on the Friday before, because we are sharing these tablets with the planning commission. So just wanted to gauge interest in where you might be. We could do a hybrid, we could do,
About using a tablet, rather than getting a hard copy, we would view the agenda on the whatever that thing is electronically. The council already does
Yeah,
that.
I guess they do. I'm old school.
yeah.
Surprise?
No,
I'm
I-
not surprised.
I thought there's a chance.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
I like it on paper.
Yep.
Because I like to go back to it. 4 months ago, I look back and I say, no, wait a while, we talked about that and we said that was gonna be this. But now all of a sudden it's changed or whatever. So I'm sure you can do that on a tablet as well. But I really like the feel of paper. It's like a book.
Yep.
I'd rather read a book than read it on a tablet. It's just on hands-on. So that's my opinion.
Then we will respect that, and we can hybrid this too. So if anyone's ready to go full electronic, you can tell staff, we'll do it that way. And those that want to stay on paper, we're happy to continue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just we'd have to be picking them up and dropping them off and picking them up and dropping them off.
Uh,
Because of the
Yep.
T and Z. I mean, we probably get it on a Monday. We'd have to make sure we got it back so that they could have it on a Tuesday. Maybe it's better off for Jerry and I to stay with the paper so that we're not interfering with
Planning.
what the planning is doing.
Would it work to have our illustrious staff bring it to the EDA meeting and take it
Well,
back?
then
with
they
them?
would, either way, you have a finite amount of time.
That's true. You haven't
need it
given
over
them
the
the time to go
weekend.
back over it.
They are the first Tuesday, we are the first Monday. So they would need to get it right away
You
on
wouldn't have
Tuesday
time
to be
re-
able to
go
review.
back through it and review it. Yeah. I see
Right.
what you're saying.
That makes sense. I don't want
So I mean, Jerry and I have no problem with doing paper and let the planning have their tablets if they want it. I don't care.
We'll be having the same conversation with the planning commission tomorrow and kind of see where the spectrum falls.
We're trying to support the Northwoods lumbering industry.
Yes, we
so,
are.
you know,
Yes, we are.
Definitely doing what we can here.
Yes, we are. We're producing a lot of paper.
And whoever makes toner, they're doing all right too.
Yeah, they're doing
So, Alicia, we won't escape it fully, but we're happy to help.
Right, I was
Meet you
gonna
guys where you're at.
ask for council meetings. Do you guys actually vote on your pads too?
No,
No, not yet.
it's we're
Okay.
all- and then the city clerk reports it.
Okay.
Otherwise, I
There
would
are
Say we
things
could
that
still
yes.
bring them and then take them back at the end of the night, and still have them in time for planning also, but you could still get your hard copy packets too.
So there are councils that vote on their computers. Well,
I think ideally
now,
that's
do
what
you-
they're
does the
planning on
council-
eventually going to.
How is that affected by state statutes?
You still have.
I couldn't answer that right now.
Aaron,
I have to,
does the
That
council
has your
then
voted-
have to
your-
make
our
sure they
votes are
get their
public.
tablets to the
yeah,
public?
so it records
No,
them is what
they've
it
got-
does.
they
So
have
you
a
still
separate
do
batch.
verbal.
We
So
track.
that seems
ideally-
strange. They would have all their own, except for the two that are Jerry's and
That's
mine.
something that I would have to
That we would
address.
have to share with the planning commission.
Well, I'm just thinking.
Right,
if it-
and I-
if
it
Now
was-
that I
the clerk
think
has
about
to
it, that
record
seems kinda
everything, all the
strange.
By
actions
virtue
anyways.
of.
Yeah.
And we would have to
costs, so we
still
tried
stay
to-
I understand the cost, so let's eliminate that. Planning commission
Doesn't- I
can
mean,
knock
it's
themselves
so
out. They can
redundant.
All right.
have whatever they
It-
want.
I'm
I think
down.
what it does is it marks it like
That-
for the
that's cool
minutes
with
and
me.
everything like that too.
You know,
I am
Jerry and I'll
comfortable
stay
right
with
there.
the paper and we're not gonna.
Got it.
yeah, our terms are up pretty soon anyway.
Well,
What's new?
I say our terms are up pretty soon.
What's new? You're usually quiet.
All right, well, I think we have direction. Thank you.
Yep, okay, all right. Then the last thing is just a reminder that the next authorized meeting is, we're not doing May?
I thought you mentioned earlier that there's gonna be.
Yeah, we're in
The
May.
next regular
That says
meeting is
June.
June 7th.
June 7th.
So we need a special meeting in May?
Oh, 7th.
Yeah,
All right, so
yeah.
we'll just be ready for it. We're not traveling,
No
so
big vacations.
nobody is.
So we are gonna have a special meeting in May?
It's likely, yes.
Okay.
But the regular one, a regular meeting will be scheduled
June.
for June,
Yep.
but we better just kind of wait and see what happens. Because we're gonna be doing the impact increment. Is that what
Yes.
it'd be for?
Yes, that would be.
Okay, all right. All right, is there any other business?
That is it.
Okay, seeing that there's no other business, could I have a motion and a second that we adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and second that we adjourn. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
See you guys.
To go inside.